Holly, I got all this money. I'm not traveling. I'm buying a second property. And you know what? Variable rate's at 1.5%. Why would I be the fool that takes a fixed rate at 3% right now? And then 2 years later, they're like, I'm not going up as much as I thought. I might have to sell this thing.
Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Tom Storey Show. This is your Sunday real estate roundup podcast where we talk about what is happening in the Canadian real estate market and try to make it actually make sense for you. If you're watching this video on YouTube, all we ask is hit that subscribe button. We are getting very, very close to 2,000 subscribers. Well, we're not really. We're like 400 away, but we're on our way to get there. And this channel growing from what it was to what it is now, we are very, very thankful that you continue to show up here every single week. Also, remember to like this video. If you're listening on the audio platforms, I was talking with Steve before we started recording, and Steve, we're getting up to like 900 downloads a week, which is insane. So cool. So just want to thank everyone for showing up every single week. And I don't know what we've done to convince you to actually listen to us, but we definitely appreciate it. That takes us into today's guest. Holly Carroll has joined us. She works for the agency, actually our second agency agent. Say that 3 times fast. Matt Leonetti had also joined the show. In 2018, you won Miss Canada Tourism. Fun fact, Steve is actually Mr. Surrey Tourism. And he's doing a terrible job. Just a terrible job. So we're gonna get.
I'm doing a great job, Tom Storey.
Holly, you specialize in waterfront properties, primarily in Muskoka, Haliburton, and the Kawartha Lakes. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I was just saying before we jumped on that I was like, this guy better have me on the show. So thank you.
Well, we were just hoping you'd say yes, though. So thanks for being here.
Yes, of course.
So let's start with some background. Like, we're going to cover a lot of market today, and I've got a lot of questions about your market because it's like totally different from what me and Steve do every single day. How did you get in real estate? Years in real estate? You know, how did you pick the agency? Like, what do people need to know about you as we get started here?
Okay, so before I got into real estate, I was an international model for 17 years.
Wow.
Then I was actually in network marketing, which, if anybody knows, is like horrible sales. So I basically went into boot camp sales, and I constantly got people telling me, you should get into real estate. You should get into real estate. So I started real estate. I actually started my license in California.
Oh.
And I moved back to apply for Miss Canada Tourism. So that kind of took me back home, and I got my real estate license. And from the moment I started, I was like, I wish I started way sooner than I did.
Right.
I went through a couple brokerages. We won't name their names.
Yep.
Were wonderful. They definitely groomed me. And I think everything that I did up until this point made me who I am. But I think at the time in my career, the agency just fit with me. What I'm doing. And I mentioned the modeling background because a lot of that advertising that I went through has to do with the agency. I feel like the agency has a little bit different marketing than a lot of people. We often say we're actually a marketing brand that specializes in real estate.
Right.
So it fit and it clicked. I mean, I love the agency, but I mean, it's just really what you align with. I love them. I love their culture. I love to do events. They really fit with me.
Yeah, we asked Matt about that as well because we knew one of their list of things is you can't be an asshole. And we asked Matt how he snuck in. It makes sense how you got in because you're nice. Matt, on the other hand, we'll leave it at that.
And it's funny, and it's funny you say that Matt was on the show before because I keep going after him.
Oh, sorry, we should have had you first.
Yeah.
He invited me on his podcast, so you had to kind of No. He's been on our list for a long time, and so have you. Okay, so I want to ask something. So I think what you've done a very, very good job at, and we'll get into the market here in a second, is like being visible. And the thing that I've always talked about or kind of preached to all real estate agents is like, it doesn't matter how good you are at what you do if nobody knows. And visibility beats ability. It's not necessarily more important, but it comes first. And the talk I'm actually working on for tomorrow is called like how to be chosen. Like how do you don't actually need to be the best at what you do, although you have to be really good, but you have to be the best at actually getting people to want to work with you. And I think you've done a really good job at like did you already have this following from the 17 years of international modeling that you then brought over, or you built this from scratch for real estate?
I had a bit, because I do a lot of other things. I do some women empowerment things. And of course the Miss Canada thing it helped. Right. But what really changed was, well, for one, I live a lifestyle and I sell a lifestyle. So I live in Muskoka. So it's kind of easy to sort of brag about your lifestyle.
Right.
But you know what? I ended up loving myself and loving what I do. So it's a lot easier when you love yourself and love what you do to just kind of blab about it.
I like
and
it.
Then I actually really enjoy it. Like I really enjoy it. And I love collaborating with people that like it. I love collaborating with other people that are businesses in Muskoka. So it started from there. And then I almost became a little obsessed with it.
It's so funny you say that. Like I tell when I'm meeting with a seller, part of my listing presentation is like talking about how serious I take this business and how I'm like borderline obsessed. And like, I don't do this for fun on the weekends. This isn't a job I'm trying out. Like I've jumped in, I've cannonballed into the pool and like, I'm all in on this. Right. So you primarily sell what we would call like cottage country, right? Cottage properties on the water, on the lakes. Can you explain to Steve what a cottage is? Cause he lives in Surrey, which is kind of like 45 minutes outside Vancouver, similar to like a suburb to Toronto, but they don't have the same cottage culture we have. Like why is everyone so obsessed with cottages in Canada?
Well, I will have to say, Steve, you're going to have to come here, because once you do get here, you'll know. It's a feeling and it's an emotion all through and through. But Muskoka, above other cottage countries, has this like luxury feel. It's like the Hamptons of the North. In fact, it's better than the Hamptons. One of the biggest things that I think it is that you can get everywhere from a boat, from water. So we have all these cities that are on water. You can drive up to the liquor store. You can drive up to shopping. You can drive up to a restaurant. So you can literally live on the water. And think about what water does to your soul. I mean, it just calms you down. You can't really be pissed off on a boat, can you?
Well, it would take a lot, unless it's raining maybe, but no, not really.
Fair enough. Even in the rain though, Muskoka, like if people come here and they're like, wow, I understand what you mean. Like I slept better. My family has memories. Like I'm not just saying like the luxury of it all, but like it actually does something to your soul. So there's a price tag.
Yeah. And so we'll get into like what it actually costs, but to show properties in Muskoka and in Haliburton and those lakes, are you literally like jumping on a boat or a Sea-Doo and ripping across and like there's a lockbox on the dock? Like what does that look like? In the winter, are you like skating across the lakes, or like what's going on?
I'm not going to lie. I have showed a lot of my clients on boat.
Yeah. That's got to be pretty cool experience, right?
It's a pretty cool experience. And then going back to social media, I mean, that's fun to document that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think it's cool because it's actually fun to be a real estate agent here too. It's not just fun to buy and be here. Like it's fun to be a real estate agent. I started in Toronto, and finding those lock boxes on those condos, like I don't have to do that.
Yeah, it's like literally the difference is like in Toronto, you're like just like looking at 45 black lock boxes, trying to figure out which one it is. Then you get stuck in the parking garage in the basement of the condo and have to buzz up. Where in Muskoka, you're on a boat, it's sunny out, and you're like, docking and then walking up to the cottage. It's a whole different experience.
It's a whole different experience. And you know what? I kind of like where the market's going, because it's almost a buyer's market right now.
Oh,
I mean, Muskoka's always kind of been that way anyway, I feel, because it's easier to attract people here. It's harder to get them to go.
Right.
It's a whole experience. When you come and we go to showings, it's a whole experience for you. It's a whole experience for my clients. We're going on a boat, or we're going on a paddle boat. We're going, to the restaurant that overlooks the water. Like it's a full experience, right?
So what are we seeing in Muskoka right now or surrounding areas? Like if I'm looking at this from afar, knowing nothing, because truly that is where I'm coming from here. I don't know anything about that area. Like, is it all luxury? Is it picking up? Because, during the pandemic, right, cottages went cuckoo. Like, everyone was like, I'm now a cottage owner, or that wanted to be a cottage owner. Has that now slowed down? Is it picking back up now that we're in, like, quote unquote spring market? Are you going to see more inventory? I know I just asked like 7 questions, but like, what's going on? Like, what's going on in the Muskoka real estate market?
Well, on a general answer to that question, it's the same thing as everywhere else, but I will tell you the difference. Like, obviously we know that interest rates are up and inventory, like, prices are down. That's still similar to the same thing. But the thing is that Muskoka holds this price tag, especially waterfront properties. Now, I'm only going to talk about waterfront properties because that's what I specialize.
Yep.
It's different with inland properties, but waterfront properties are always going to hold that price tag. So you're looking at least $1 million to get on the water. Now, there are some properties that you can find that are under $1 million. They're rarer and they go a little bit quicker. But because there's so many opportunities for you to get in here as an investment property, as your cottage, the value will never really go down. So it's always going to maintain that price tag. I do see things starting to climb because, of course, buyers are coming back. So more buyers, more bidding, the prices go up. So it's similar to really any market, other than the fact that waterfront is always going to hold that price tag.
I mean, I try to relate things to Steve's market when I have like Ontario people on the show. So like, I know it's different, but like the price tag wise, would Whistler be comparable to Muskoka in terms of like, or is Whistler just even another level of craziness? Like, Steve, what does Whistler cost?
Well, here's the thing. In Whistler, a lot of the time you don't get like what I would call a cottage. These are luxury mansions as far as I'm concerned. And then they start $3, $4, $5 million. And then if you want to get on the water, you're upwards from there, right? Because there's a few lakes around Whistler. So to me, it's so strange when I got to come out to your, let's call it a cottage, Tom. I don't think it's a cottage.
It's not real cottage country, but that's what I'll call it. Yeah,
but it is lakefront, right? So we just don't seem to have that culture at all, because we do have one resort town. I guess you guys are going to have resort towns too, but when you go there, the real estate is so unobtainable. Like, townhouses are triple what they are in my market. And then you can go to, we have boat access only, some cabins here and there. It's not a deep culture of that. It's not like, every third family on the street is like, oh, we have a cottage that's been passed down through the family. Like, that is just not the culture that we have here. There's a few spots, but very, very few. And generally speaking, the values are very close. Like, if you want to get on water, values are very close to detached anyway, like in our markets. And now you got to drive. I think the biggest difference could be that to get to a lot of our resort areas, the interior, that you're talking 4 or 5 hour drives. Yeah. And that's not go away for the weekend anymore, right? That is like, holy crap, we got to go there for a week because it's going to be a 5.5 hour drive in one direction. I think that's probably the biggest thing. The mountains probably hinder us more than you guys, because last time I flew into Ontario, like, it's as flat as far as you can possibly see, right? I think you guys are actually the prairies.
Well, let's not get crazy here. So Holly, so for luxury Muskoka, like, when I hear Muskoka, I think like, oh, expensive properties on the water. Is there affordable real estate even inland? Like, is it? And when we say cottages, when I think cottage growing up, I'm like, oh, again, what Steve was saying, your grandparents had this, it went to your parents, and you're going to your friend's parents' cottage growing up, and it's this beautiful place, but maybe they couldn't afford to buy it today if they wanted to because it came down through generations. Now, and like, we got to remember, we live in Canada, and it does actually get pretty cold in the winter, even in Muskoka. But are people taking these quote unquote cottages and turning them into like homes, lake houses, where they're living there all year long anyways?
A lot of people are living here all year round. I'm not sure if that'll change, because that's what happened during the pandemic, because we couldn't really go anywhere. So Muskoka's now become a 4-season place. I moved here, so I do like it here. But you are seeing that those family cottages are now turning into more McMansions. Like people are, upgrading all their cottages. So it's rare to find these old cottages that are original anymore.
Right.
When I think cottage, like I'm thinking like, that one big room, maybe with a bedroom in the back, the kids sleep in the loft upstairs, and it's got a wood burning fireplace. Like that's what I think of a cottage.
Like no Wi-Fi, shitty cell reception. Like, yeah, totally. That's not what you're selling, Holly.
No, and I mean, you can probably find that if you go really north out of Muskoka and, over in Kawarthas. But Muskoka is like luxury waterfront.
Crazy. And a lot of celebrities have now found out about Muskoka, and that certainly can't hurt the values going forward, that like, Martin Short or whoever owns a place down the road or whatever, like that certainly people like that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I think that what the draw is that it's very private and serene.
Yeah.
So a lot of celebrities are over on Lake Rosso, and the reason why is because the lots are so big that you don't really have neighbors. So and you'd only be able to see where they are as if you boat it up, and still the house is so far back. So for a celebrity, it's a perfect place.
Yeah, I've seen on your Instagram that like you're also like selling places in Bahamas, and like, can you explain that to me? Like, are you, because of your company, are you doing international as well? Is that part of the pull? Like, what's that? What's going on there?
So that was a full-on collaboration. So It was my client, and he's actually a Canadian.
Okay.
But I needed a Bahamian realtor.
Gotcha.
Listed. Yes. So technically on paper, it's not my listing.
Understood.
But what ended up happening is I actually went to a mindset retreat in the Bahamas with my coach. And one of the biggest things was like, what do you want to be? Like, think big with no limits. And I was like, I want to be an international luxury realtor. And not even 2 hours later, I found out that the place that we were staying at for $30 million was for sale. 6 months later, after a grueling 6 months of like tracking this guy down, showing up at his door, giving him my book, telling him he needs to sell with me, I got the listing.
That's awesome. So 6 months of follow-up and not taking no for an answer. And I'm assuming getting in touch with information that's actual value, and not just saying like, hey, when that contract expires, call me. That's great. And I saw I think you did something with Matt Campoli where you guys did like a cool marketing video for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so nice to involve other real estate agents in your projects, because like I firmly believe that like there's enough to go around, and if we help each other, it's just we're all going to win.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
It's so fun to be around.
You said that when you went there initially, you went with your coach. So that's actually something I'd like to get into with you. Me and Steve have been in real estate, specifically real estate coaching, for like, I've been like 7 or 8 years. Steve's a slow learner, so I think he's like 12 or 13 years. Would you recommend someone in our industry to look into that aspect? Is your coaching like life coaching? Is it just real estate?
It's 1000% a must.
Yeah.
You have to get a coach. In fact, you should probably get a coach in a few things. I actually reevaluate sort of where I am at least every year, and I figure out what I sort of need to improve in, whether it be relationships, whether it be real estate, whether it be, something that I'm healing. Like, I think that if we're in any business, whatever business you're in, which is real estate, find a real estate coach, and maybe a couple coaches, because some coaches teach differently. So even if you're like, oh, I tried that, I've already gone with a coach. Well, maybe that coach only could teach you so much,
Yeah. It's funny. Like, I know myself that in my real estate business, I'm very structured, and I like to have a coaching call every 2 weeks, and I like to go to conferences and see people. But then in my personal life, like the amount of times I've been like, I'm going to work out 5 times a week, and then it never happens, because I know if any personal trainers listening to this, like, call me and I'll hire you, because I need someone to make me cry. I need someone to yell at me and be like, you better do this. Steve's been amazing, by the way, Holly. Steve's been on a weight loss thing this year, and he's like down 35 pounds.
Proud of you, Steve. I am currently on 75 hard.
Oh,
yeah.
What day are you on?
3.5 weeks in.
Nice.
This is not the issue, right? The first 90 days I find is easy. It's usually the following 3 years after that I have difficulty with.
But you're so right, Tom. You have to get a coach in almost everything you do. And the way you do one thing is probably the way you do everything. So if you need structure in real estate, you need structure at the gym. If I just went to the gym, I would be on my phone the whole time talking to clients. Like I have a personal trainer that kicks my ass, and then I get in and get out.
This episode of the Tom Storey Show is brought to you by Lendlord. If you've not heard of Lendlord, it is a software platform designed for real estate investors. It helps you easily track your portfolio and get reminders when things like rent and utility payments are due. But the best feature and my most favorite feature of the entire platform is something called a deal analyzer. This is where you, as a real estate investor, can log into the software, plug in your future potential purchase, and the system quickly comes up with important information like cap rate, cash on cash return, and even future potential values. It's a totally free software, but listeners of the Tom Storey Show can get 90 days of the upgraded paid version right now totally for free by either clicking the link down below in the description or going to lendlord.io/tomshow. And if you're a real estate agent and you're not using this software to quickly and efficiently analyze deals for your clients, well, I think you're doing your clients a disservice. Download Lendlord today for a quick and easy way for you to analyze not only your own future purchases, but those of your clients. So again, that's lendlord.io/Tom Show to sign up right now, and listeners of the Tom Storey Show receive 90 days of the paid version totally for free. I have tried this software myself. I think it's fantastic and extremely useful as a real estate investor. Sign up today. That's lendlord.io/Tom Show. And now back to the podcast.
You mentioned when you were going after this big listing that you gave him your book. Let's talk about that. We had Kathleen Black on the show. A few other people have written books. I'm like, damn, like I'm so jealous. There it is. So selling secrets you can't afford to, is that miss? Yeah. Can't afford to miss. So how did this come about? How did we write a book? And how can you tell me how I can do it? Because I want to do it.
Absolutely. So I actually started writing the book to kind of know myself, which is crazy. And as I was writing, I was healing. I was actually writing a different book. Which is coming out soon, called Closing Deals and Heels.
I like
but
it.
this particular book is all about facts. It's just facts on how to sell your house, secrets to sell your house. We talk about curb appeal, which now more than ever, I think that traditional real estate and marketing and setting up like the primer before you paint is more important than ever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this book's for real estate agents. This book's for sellers, buyers, just to kind of get the basics down pat.
I think it's so cool. This might go like a little bit inside baseball here that only like people in the industry would get what I'm about to say. But, you know, someone who I'm a big fan of and learned a lot of marketing tips from is named Dean Jackson. And his thing's always like, he basically invented the squeeze page online. Like he's the OG. He's awesome. And his thing's always like lead magnets, and that if 100 people put up their hand and say, hi, I'm kind of interested in this thing, 50% of them will buy that product in the next 18 months, but only 15% will buy in the next 90 days. And on our real estate cycle, you're like, okay, I'm talking to buyers and sellers. They're looking to do something in the next 90 days, but guess what? They're not on your schedule. They're on their own schedule. And where I'm bringing this around here is I think you having that book, I'm sure has created a lot of like emails for you online. Like, do you offer it for, is it like the exchange for emails? Is that how it works?
Well, a lot. It's more credibility. I give these out to kind of be like, I wrote a book too.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's genius. I think it's great. I think anyone that takes their business seriously should consider it. And it's been one of those things on my list for like years. So I'm really just asking lots of questions because I'm jealous.
Well, I will give you some tips. I mean, I think that you honestly can do anything, and it's not as hard as you think it is. So I think you're probably like, whoa, how did you write a book? Well, like I just did it.
Yeah.
I freaking wrote the book. I got up, I wrote for a little bit, and I wrote it. And you find yourself actually doing a lot more than you thought you would if you just take the first step. There's also book coaches out there. Yeah. There's also retreats you can go to. I mean, this is a pretty thin book. I mean, nothing in here you don't know, Tom. So you could have wrote this book, but you didn't.
But I didn't. But that's the point, though, right? It's like the difference between the people running big businesses and the people that are just getting by is that the people running the good businesses get shit done. They have an idea and they execute on it, right? Like me and Steve talk about this all the time, and I don't want to like preach to people in this episode, but it's like just do it. You can learn for 30 years. If you don't do anything you learn, it doesn't matter, right? So yeah, I just want to say like congrats on like actually doing the thing you put your mind to, because I think that's what's setting you apart.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Half the battle
Tom, that is the big thing, right? That is why, though, like we've met people together who very much have like that scarcity mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to give you my secret to doing this. And you and I have been completely the opposite of that. And like being open and honest with everything. I had a call with somebody yesterday and he was asking me like how to structure a team. And, you know, at the end, it's like, oh, okay. You just gave the information, right? So there's no holding it back. There's no nothing. Just here's all of the information, because what you pointed out, which is the difference between Holly and Tom, is Holly got off her ass and wrote the book, right? So, but here's the difference, right? Like with YouTube, right? Like how many people have we spoke to now, Tom, that are like, you know, I can't get my YouTube off the ground.
Yeah.
And you and I are talking to them, showing them all of the tips to do. And then it turns out the only reason Tom or Steve is more successful at it is because guess who's cranking out the most amount of videos, doing the most amount of the actual work.
We're consistent. That's literally the difference, right? I think so at least for me and Steve, yeah. You
can tell everybody everything, and only the successful people are usually the ones that end up actually doing the thing, right? Like I can tell you all the secrets. I cannot get you out of bed in the morning. And that's it. That's simply all it is, right? So Tom, because you haven't wrote a book, you are the problem.
Now I'm going to set a goal and write something. Holly, I might call you after this.
Well, you know what I did YouTube, how to write a book. And to be honest with you, the book actually, I don't want to say doesn't matter, but it's not about the book. It's about how you're going to market the book and how you're going to use the book. Yep. So this book has actually got me a lot of credibility. It's got me a lot of business, and it's got me podcast. Like, it's what the book can do for you. So that might help you change your perspective and make you want to write it. Right.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree. I've just been like, so the truth is like, actually the reason why I got so interested in video stuff was because like I don't consider myself a good writer. Like I don't think I could write good blogs. Now, obviously editors can fix all that stuff for you, but I'd always just focus on that. Even like when I do presentations and talks, if I have a script, I will screw up. Like sometimes when I introduce this podcast and introduce the guest, I'm reading off of it, and that's where I stumble. But when I can just like talk and see, so maybe I should just record myself talking, and then that will turn into the book. That maybe is what I'm missing here.
Well, yeah. And most readers want to read something that's a little more simple. So when we think we have to be like Shakespeare, or, you know, we have to be this great writer, I don't want to read a book like that. It's hard to read. Yeah. So actually you'll probably be fantastic just talking into a recorder and then writing it down. I'd read your book, Tom, I promise. Okay.
I got one person that will read it then. That's
I will also read your book, Tom.
No, Steve will listen to the audio book.
You can't have hey man, I'm picking up books now. I'm doing it. But they have to be 3 to 4 page chapters. That's my rule.
Steve, what book is that? Because I know you've been telling me offline that book's been like a big changer for you.
This is my new life. I don't want to overshadow Holly's book, but this is my new life.
They ask, you answer.
Ooh,
they ask, you answer. I heard this. I think Byron. I was listening to that podcast you sent me with Byron and
Lizzie, with Bam.
He mentioned this, and I bought it. And you are going to get more information out of me now than ever before. If you're a client. Yeah, if you're a client, like this book just basically says, hey, stupid, whoever gives the best answers is going to get all of the business. That's this book. You don't need to buy it anymore. So of the mindset that says like, you know, hey, I don't want to give away this secret of my business. It's like your client wants to know. So give it away. Tell them. Not only tell them 1,000 times, right? Like just put it out there. And then as a result, if those people find you, they'll do business with you. And this guy that writes this what's his name? Sheridan, I think. He sells pools or sold pools. Marcus Sheridan. He sold pools. And exactly what's in this book can be applied to anybody that provides any sort of service, because all you got to do is put the information out there and people will follow you. I didn't even realize I was doing half of the stuff in here. And that's why YouTube has become so successful. It's like, give the information. Like Holly says, Tom, you probably already are like, yeah, Holly, I'm a real estate agent. I know all this crap in this book. But she's the one that was smart enough to put it down on paper.
Yeah, her name's on the cover of it. So
to distribute it to people that are looking for the information, right? So that's the thing we always call it, right? Like you can be the smartest agent in the world, but if you're the secret agent, nobody knows that you're giving out the information. Like, are you really going to give that information one-on-one on phone calls?
It would take forever.
Time?
It would take forever. Yeah.
It takes forever. Put it out there.
Holly, you talked about, so after the modeling, there was a gap. Was it marketing you were in? Like, how did you know to like do these things right away and find the success so early? Like, how did you know how to do this?
You know what? I just did it. I just tried it.
Yeah.
My first year in real estate was a little rocky, but I also had my hands in a whole bunch of different things.
Welcome to the club. Yeah.
I say, yeah, fair enough. But you know what? I did a lot of inner work, and I know you guys as coaches know what the heck that means. I did a lot of inner work. I radically forgave myself and I loved myself. And then I just went for it. Like, I truly believe that I had to see my success in my mind before it came to my reality. So like, I was selling $7 million cottages before I actually was. Like, that was a thing. And you know, I go to those showings sometimes and film myself in them like they're mine. Yeah. I don't say they're mine, but I don't necessarily say they're not.
Yep. Well, perception is everything in this industry. It's the reality of it, right? Steve, I used to sit in my car before I go in and meet a seller. And one of the things, Holly, we've been coaching with Richard Robbins for a long time. And you know, one of the things that he used to teach us on stage is like in between, he'd be like, dude, if you're not watching this, I'm basically moving each elbow 3 times. I would sit in my car before I walked in to meet a seller and do it 3 times and pump myself up and just be like, I know what I'm doing. There's no reason to be nervous here. And even though I had the knowledge, it was like sometimes you get in your own head and think at the moment it's about to happen that, oh no, wait, I forgot everything, right? So like, it's these little funny things that I think could make a difference for everybody.
Oh, you should have seen what I did before the podcast.
Hyping yourself up. It's a really something that's strange that's happened to me, Tom, is I used to have the same thing, and I think every agent struggles with this, right? Because you're basically, every time you go into a listing appointment, you're doing a performance, right?
Yeah.
You're selling yourself and you're doing a performance. And it's probably with only in the last 1.5 to 2 years that I've started walking in going, oh, I got this. Like, I know now, like I'm not questioning myself anymore. And I think the only way you can do that is reps. Because like, I listen to a lot of comedy podcasts, and they always talk about the guys that are in comedy for like 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 years, and how they think they're really good and they're getting better. But like, if you take somebody you've never even heard of and they've been working small rooms and doing comedy for like 17 years, they're going to tear that other guy apart. Like, the level is just, they don't know what they don't know yet. And they don't have that comfort level. So it's just, and the only way to obtain that is to do repetitions. And the only way to obtain that is to walk into a listing appointment and just get kicked out on your ass and told you're a piece of crap, right? Like, that's the only way you can get over it. Now, here's the difference. I don't know that necessarily conversion is any better than before. It's just now I know they have the information, and there might be some guy that's doing it cheaper for me, and I might lose the business to that person. But I go in there and I'm like, they don't know that now, but that was a good presentation, right? Like, I did not eat shit there. And until you experience that over time, I just think it's really tough to get around. And until then, point of my story, Tom Storey. I like how I
wrap this thing up. Holy crap.
Point of my story here is like, until then, you do have to psych yourself up to get in there, because it's hard to sit down in front of somebody.
Terrifying.
It's hard to sell yourself to somebody.
Holly, what have you done to like build that confidence?
I will tell you that you can actually do the reps in your mind as well. It's like you can actually feel that emotion. So I've literally imagined and visualized a lot of my listing presentations before I've gone into my listing presentations, or just the sale of the home, or the podcast or whatever. And I get emotionally attached to the idea. So when I walk in, it's like it's happening. I've already been here before.
Right. Yeah. You feel comfortable.
I feel comfortable. Yeah. Because that's what it is. Like Steve said, it's basically you psych yourself out. It's like, I'm my worst enemy. But you know that you did a kick-ass job there because you're confident now. So how do you get confident if you don't have all the reps? You need to practice them at least in your mind.
Have you guys ever tried something new in a listing presentation and it goes really bad?
Yeah, of course.
And you're like, I remember once when I was so proud of myself. This was probably like 2011. And I was like, you know what? There's all these guys around the table and they're all like the investors in this property. So I printed out like this, like the CMA was thick and there was like color copies for everybody, all bound, and everything was perfect. We start our presentation, and 2 seconds into the presentation, the kind of crazy guy at the end of the table flips to the back page and looks at the price. And then he puts down the book and goes,
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm never doing this again. Right? Like I've just lost this guy completely. So I don't know. Have you ever done that? Have you ever gone through something where it's like, that didn't work at all?
Yeah.
Well, probably. I mean, it wasn't as embarrassing me that right off the bat. I've had like, you remember when we used to go, well, this sounds so crazy to say because I feel like I'm young in the industry, but I'm not anymore. Is like you would go present, and so there was 17 offers on a house. I'm sitting outside in the car, gonna pee my pants because I've been there for 3 hours. I go in, it's finally my turn to present the offer. My client's with me in the car. I go in, it's these, this older couple and their agents there, and I'm like, and our price is, and I literally just like blanked. I was like, I have no clue what price we're offering. I had to like scramble and look at the pages, and my hands were like shaking. And I was like, that is never gonna happen again. I'm so embarrassed. We actually won the house, but like, I was like that. I just felt terrible walking back. I was like, I did a bad job representing my client.
Don't you need that? Like now you know, right? Like you thought your whole life you were like, okay, I'm gonna go in there, I'm just gonna present. And now when you ate it in front of people and your like heart sinks and the two sellers are sitting there and the other agent who's probably 25 years in the business, and Tom almost pees himself. Like, and in this story, almost literally, right? Like, and it's like, oh man, I can't go back there again. So now the next time you go out, you're going to be more prepared and better at what you do. You have to go through it.
Holly, have you had that? Especially when you're walking into like some like, listen, the level of real estate you're dealing with is much higher than what me and Steve are dealing with on a day to day. So like with the luxury stuff, is that just, you just got to get over it and walk in there and just do your thing? Like, is it different at that price point?
Well, it shouldn't be. I think the only difference is that like if you're not used to it, right? Like if you're not used to luxury and you step into luxury, like that's a whole nother thing that you're gonna have to get used to, right? So I try and be luxury even in my feelings and what I do before I go into that, so I can be a vibrational match to my clients, right? But I will say, like I have a habit of stuttering when I get nervous. I'm going to be on stage actually at this event for my very first on stage speech. And I'm like, I'm going to stutter. And like, I almost stutter and then tried to stutter my way back into English. So I've definitely done that. And then your face just goes red and then you just look stupid. And I feel like sometimes when I started the business, because I was a model and I'm blonde, people already think I don't know what I'm talking about.
Do you actually feel like, do you think you have to then prove it to them because of that?
I mean, I did accept that identity at one point, but now you only have to prove it to yourself.
Right.
And then once you believe it and you trust it, it doesn't matter after that anyways, because you can't control what they think.
Right.
But yes, I took on that identity for a while, and I was it almost crushed me, because it was like, no one's going to believe me. No one's going to take me seriously. I'm young, I'm blonde, I'm pretty, which is supposed to be really good things in the in the world. But it affected me, but I let it affect me.
Right. And so you had talked about before, you did a lot of like inner healing. I don't know if that's the word you used. You don't have to share too much, but like, has it changed? Like, what does your day look like? Are you an early riser? I'm guessing you're not like going out and drinking as many cocktails as Steve does on a normal Thursday afternoon. Thursday evening, excuse me. Like, what changed in your life? What was the thing that you're like, now I'm dialed in, I'm making this happen?
Well, sorry, Steve, not to say anything, but I actually quit alcohol January 21st, 2021.
Oh, okay.
And not that people need to quit alcohol, but what it was doing for me, it was taking more than it was giving, and it was just masking everything. So in order for me to get serious about myself and serious about the business, I cut it out completely, and I did a deep dive. I did a deep dive into what my limited beliefs was, what was holding me back, like some of the patterns that I had picked up that weren't so healthy. And like I said, I just found out who I was. I became self-aware, and then I built off on that. I built my confidence on that.
So it's like you got to start first by understanding and figuring yourself out, and then you can then go to the world and then be confident in what you do moving forward, because you're not masking it with, whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever else it is. I didn't think we were going to get so deep in this episode, but this is awesome.
Well, I think, there's people listening that could be like, okay, let's think about this.
Right.
What is holding me back? Is it a relationship? Is it, your relationship maybe with a higher power? Is it alcohol? Is it drugs? Is it because for the longest time, I justified going out. I mean, we're in an industry where alcohol is kind of readily available, and I'm not anti-alcohol, but I do think a lot of people justify drinking, and it's a slow death. It really is in your business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. Okay, I want to go back to the market here just for a second, just to get back to like the area that you sell in. Yes. Most of the buyers that are coming up to Muskoka, are they from the city, or are you getting locals as well? Like, is it still the Toronto money kind of influxing into that market?
Yeah, Toronto and surrounding area. I don't really get a lot of local clients. The local clients are usually moving just locally. So there's a big divide between the locals and the cottagers. Right. Right. So yes, most of my clients are from out of town, and it's a second home for them.
And have you seen, let's play doom and gloom here for at least a minute of this podcast. Anyone during the pandemic that's like, Holly, I got all this money, I'm not traveling, I'm buying a second property. And you know what? Variable rate's at 1.5%. Why would I be the fool that takes a fixed rate at 3% right now? And then 2 years later, they're like, I'm not going up as much as I thought. I might have to sell this thing. Is that happening?
There are definitely people that got in a lot of trouble doing that and actually couldn't close.
Oh, okay.
I'm still waiting for people to kind of get in that moment where they need to sell. The problem with that is they're going to lose money if they
big
do.
Time. Yeah.
So because it's probably their second home, and because they probably had the money, I'm not working with a lot of, first-time home buyers that like had to worry about a mortgage. Right. So like chances are they can maybe hang on to it for a little bit longer. I have a couple sellers that I'm like, oh, your price has not gone up at all. In fact, it's gone down quite a bit. So if you can hold on to it, even though I want a listing, if you can hold on to it.
And there's lots, I would guess here, because we're not talking about the average person working the average job that's coming up and buying these properties. They're people that either through legacy money, through, building their own businesses or being CEOs or whatnot, have money. Is that why the market is fairly stable? Because is there a lot of cash? Just people are just buying these things cash. They're not relying on rates as much.
Yeah, 100%. And if you think about that, that's great. I mean, most people had the money to buy up here, right? Yeah. So, and the rental income is still incredible. So the short-term rental income is still incredible. So just rent it out more.
Can you Airbnb, or did they ban that?
This episode of the Tom Storey Show is brought to you by the Real Estate Video Course. Today's real estate industry has changed, and you can no longer rely primarily on door knocking, cold calling, and geo-farming. While these strategies still work, video provides something that these traditional methods just don't, and that is leads that reach out to you because of you and the message and content that you are providing. I believe that video is king, and that through video, you can leverage your message, create stronger relationships, and become the authority on real estate in your marketplace. The Real Estate Video Course is a 5-part course that will teach you the fundamentals of video, including why it's so impactful, the equipment that you need to invest in to get started, and the proven tips and strategies used to ensure long-term success. So go to videocourselogin.com today to become a true creator, level up your editing and production skills, and develop your real estate video plan to leverage your message to current and prospective clients. That's videocourselogin.com. The link is below in the description, and don't forget to use the discount code TOMSHOW at checkout for 10% off any purchase. That's videocourselogin.com and use the checkout code TOMSHOW. That's TOMSHOW.
So there's a few places where you have to get a license because the people on that lake got a little upset. So they've put licensing in place, and some of the people will go full metal jacket on you. And if you get 3 strikes, you lose your license. But that's few and far between. For the most part, all the, desired lakes you can rent on. But I will tell you one thing that's really exciting that I really wanted to talk about on this podcast. Okay, so I just found out about 3.5 weeks ago that lenders will now accept short-term rentals as an income, which is huge in Muskoka.
That's massive, yeah.
Yeah. So before, of course, we know they weren't accepting that. Now it's only half. So let's say it rents out for $15,000 a week. They're only accepting the $7,500.
Right.
But that is huge.
So the same policy they had with yearly rental, they would still only take half. It was the same thing.
Sure.
So now they're doing it for short term. Interesting, because short term you're getting more than you're getting renting it out during the season or the year, anyways, right?
Way more.
So like, what is it? Let's talk about, like, let's say a property value, a cottage that you'd price in the $3 to $5 million range, like a really beautiful cottage on the water in Muskoka. What is that renting? If I want to rent it for a week in the summer, what does that cost?
They're renting anywhere from $10 to $30K a week.
I think Steve just had a panic attack. Steve, you okay? Are you still with us?
So it depends. More heads, more beds, gets more money, right? Yeah. There's things that you can do to your cottage to make it look more Instagram worthy, or you cedar barrel hot tub, stuff like that, right? But majority of the places are at least $10,000 a week.
Crazy. So Steve, you go to Muskoka or you go to Hawaii? You choose for the week.
It's not that far off. Like, if you're going here, you're 5 hours, but you go to a Soyuz and rent a lake house, you're $15,000 a week, I would assume, for something not that great. Now, hopefully it's going to sleep 2 or 3 families and you can do that together. Yeah. But it has deterred me, right? It is just stopped me from doing that sort of stuff. Instead, I buy a plane ticket, go out to Tom Storey's place and stay for free.
Well, for now, they're going to start charging you.
No, I'm going to go when you're there.
Oh, when I'm there. Yeah. Okay. I'll charge you a cleaning fee or something for all the beer cans left behind.
I'll clean for you, man. I love doing dishes.
Okay. Holly, I want to know trends. So is there any that we wouldn't know this, only you'd know? Like, is there any ongoing trends in your market right now, whether that is like that barrel sauna or I don't know, like what's going on with cottages? What are people doing? Is design changing?
Well, I will say that what people don't realize is that any of the lakes still rent out pretty well. So people think they need to be on Lake Joe, Lake Rosso, Lake Muskoka. As a renter, they don't care as much.
Right.
The cedar barrel sauna are huge. You put those in there, you'll get way more rental. I just discovered these fire tubs. So that's going to be a huge trend if I have to make it that way.
Can you explain this to me? What is a fire tub?
So they look like those ice tubs that people are taking ice baths in. Okay? So picture that. and there's actually a fire that you can make in the back with wood, and it heats the tub. You can put it anywhere.
You can cook in it too.
What's that?
You can cook in it. You're boiling yourself. Is that what it is?
Well, it doesn't get that hot. But
well, yeah, hope not. That's crazy. Because I guess and then are you finding this trend also? You'd mentioned before, like these ice baths, these cold. I guess you don't need anything fancy for that. But is that like now like on Airbnb? You want the cottage that you can also do an ice bath in?
People are definitely doing that. They're just like digging holes in the ice, jumping in. We have a lot of really cool skating rinks in here in the wintertime, like throughout the whole Algonquin Park, which is quite cool. The trends are boating. It's typical Muskoka, really, that trend to just be on the boat all day, fish, water, swim, go to the restaurant.
What at this point, because it obviously sounds like you really, really love the place that you live. What would there be anything ever, and I'm not saying permanently, but like what draws you back to Toronto? Like, is it like concerts, going to a sports game? Like what pulls you to the city once in a while?
Probably conferences at this point. And knowledge, and maybe
pulls me to Toronto too is conferences.
And having everybody together. But it's funny, since I've moved I used to live right downtown Toronto.
Okay.
Like I was Queen West.
Okay. Yeah.
And I thought that was just so normal to me. I couldn't imagine leaving. And since I moved to Muskoka, I can't even imagine going back. Like I even get anxiety when I drive there.
Interesting. See, because I get the opposite. When I'm driving to my cottage and I'm going down the road and I can see the water, my anxiety leaves me. I'm like, oh, I feel calm, right?
Yeah. So I do that too. Once I'm here, I have no anxiety. But when I go back to the city, it's like too much.
I have the most important question of this entire podcast. What's the internet connection like in Muskoka? Is there high speed? Can people work from there? Is it crappy 5 megabytes per second, or does Elon's internet, is it up there as well?
Yes, we have Starlink.
Okay.
And that's a big question because obviously a lot of people relocated up here during the pandemic. So we needed to figure that out. That was not a thing a couple of years ago.
Right.
Because that was kind of the draw as well, like shut off. Right. But yes, there is very high speed internet here.
That's good. And is there anything else that someone coming from the city that's going to now permanently move there, they just wouldn't know until they're living there? So obviously internet's a big thing. I'm sure like type of boat or boating rules or all that. Like what don't people know? Like what have you learned since you've moved there?
Well, the first thing that's coming to my mind is actually sewage, which is weird.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
But, sorry, Steve. But I have noticed that a lot of my clients are like septic, and they freak out when they hear the word septic. Now, no one needs to freak out because it's just a normal thing out here. It's fine. It still has a filtration system. It needs to be pumped like every 5 years, but it's fine. So I did have to get to know the different sewages. But that's pretty much it. I just learned that, there's a lot of really great people up here.
Yeah.
You're not alone up here.
Yeah. See, people think real estate's fancy, but we're just talking about septic systems. At my cottage, we have our septic system at the front under like a hill kind of. And my unofficial name for it is the poop hill. Which we told, like the one thing we were told when we bought it was like, do not park a car on that. Stay away from that. I'm like, all right, I understand. Thank you.
I'm so glad I got that out of you in this podcast.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever said poop before on the podcast. So there we go. I want to bring something up that is going a little bit different here. We're going to change this, and I want both of your opinions. So there has been news recently that Realtor.ca, which Korea owns, the Canadian Real Estate Association, they have now launched. Steve's smirking because I bet he's got an opinion on this.
No. You just said, I feel like you said Korea owns it.
Korea. Sorry,
so
Korea. Oh, Korea.
I don't think Kim Jong-un is.
Yes. Let's be clear on that.
Although Kim Jong-un might do a better job with it. So,
Well, okay. All right. So
How is it?
Realtor.ca has launched open offers. The email they sent out that basically said, if your seller chooses to allow you to, you can share and disclose the information about every offer you receive on the property. But if halfway through your seller changes their mind, then you have to stop. And it's very confusing. So I don't know how this is going to work or who's going to use it, but let's start with Holly. Like, do you think this changed anything? Does this help prices or does it just bring transparency to the buyers?
I don't know. I'm not sure who this is benefiting at this point, right? It's a hard question because, I mean, we've had so much change in the industry for the last 3 years that, like, what is working and what's not working. I'm going to pass the torch on for a minute.
Yeah.
Just to come back to me. I got to think about it for a second.
So the way I think about it now, in the last housing plan, Trudeau said that he was going to ban blind bidding. Right now, this is not a ban on blind bidding. This is an option to ask your seller if they're interested in doing it blind or open. Now, I don't know many sellers that would say necessarily, let's do it open. They usually like to keep it blind, and maybe me even making that comment proves the point that it should be open to create more transparency. Steve, I know you've got opinions on lots of things. Let's see what you got on this.
Who benefits, first of all? Who actually benefits? The seller, because open auctions have been proven time and time again to drive prices up. So that's who will benefit. Who do we think, or who does the current government, federal government, want you to think benefits from it? Or who's going to feel best about it? The person that loses the offer. So someone now not party to the contract is going to want this the most, right? So I think that is kind of silly. The worst way they can introduce this is go, maybe kind of try it a little bit, right? That's probably the worst way to go about this. So if they don't have a proper platform for us to use, they should probably keep their mouths shut.
But apparently they do have a platform. Apparently the platform has launched. I haven't tried it. Have you tried it? Have you looked at it?
I have not had a single email about it myself.
Okay.
And I'm on all Korea's mailing lists. I haven't seen a darn thing on how to set it up. There's no training on it. How about you? If we're going to go open auction, there's probably 120,000 realtors in Canada that probably need to know a little bit about it first.
Yeah, explain the rules.
Right. Yeah. Because here's what they're going to do. If they go, give it a shot, that's open for interpretation. And who is now going to be what in, bad actors or whatever. I don't change my ideas at all on open and closed bidding. Closed bidding is in place to protect the privacy and interests of the buyer and the seller. That's why it is there. You may not like it, but that's why it is there. You can argue against me all day long. You have zero. I don't even think we should still be selling or putting out sold prices until the property's closed, right? Like none of that information is there for you to have. But our society as a whole has determined that your privacy, Tom and Holly, means nothing, and everything you do is my business now, right? And that is the real fundamental change in our society that I'm probably going to have to get on board with.
Well, we agreed to that when we signed up for Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, that we're giving them all of our stuff, right? Like we've all agreed.
But Tom, why should I not know now? So I'm offering on a property. You're offering on a property. It's Holly's listing. My offer's lower. Holly tells me what your offer is. Why am I now not also allowed to know? Is it conditional? Cool. If it's financing, what is the terms of the financing and the deposit and the dates required from everybody else so I can make mine better? So all I have to do is outbid you knowingly now, completely knowingly, and I can do it. So the deepest pockets wins. They're trying to think that this is going to make it better for the average home buyer. All it's going to do is push more real estate into the deepest pockets, which is absolutely stupid and short-sighted. But that's what it takes to win votes, because people feel like your business is my business.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you don't have much an opinion on this.
I have no opinion on it whatsoever.
Holly, I've got a sorry, Steve, you want to keep going? You're riled up. What else you got?
No, I think it's stupid and ill-advised, and we need to tell the whiners that lose offers, I'm sorry. You did not own that property. Therefore, somebody else buying that property is none of your business. We need to stop the nanniness of it all.
So let's flip this, Holly, into something that I know is more prevalent in your market, which is, okay, someone from the city coming up to see one of your listings, okay? And they go to realtor.ca or one of the third-party websites and go, Holly, you are the listing agent. I would like to come up and see this property. You live here. I'm going to drive up this weekend. I want to see some places. And obviously you do your due diligence. You ask them if they're working with another realtor. They go, no, I'm not, but they lied to you, right? Because they just want to see the property. Have you had this as an ongoing issue? And I know in some listings from when out of towners, like if I show your buyer, there's things that happen and things like that. Has that been an ongoing issue in Muskoka? Or is it pretty clear? Like if you're coming up here, you're working with me because I know this market. Your agent in Toronto has no idea what's going on here.
Generally, I haven't had that because we've had a lot of conversations on the phone before they get up here.
Yeah.
So it's not like I met them on Thursday, talked to them at 4 p.m. and we're already going seeing places at night, right? Generally, we've talked on the phone quite a bit. So those questions have come up. We've kind of established a relationship before they come up and we spend the whole day together. So it's kind of hard to look at someone, spend the whole day with them and then still go and use somebody else. That hasn't really happened to me, thank God.
Yeah.
I don't know if it happens to other realtors. I don't think so either because it's a trek up here.
And even more than for me and Steve, because in typical residential real estate markets, yeah, people want to see properties, evenings and weekends because they're off work. These days with work from home, it's a little different. They can be more flexible. With you, it's like people are coming up on the weekend, I would guess, right? They're not driving up a Wednesday night typically. So it's like, are you just showing stuff all weekend, all evening, and then during the days is when you like recoup and take a nap or whatever?
I'm showing all day, every weekend through the whole spring and the whole summer. Like that's my summer.
Yeah.
The people still come up during that evening, but it's generally for like maybe a repeat. They wanted to see the place again or, for an inspection. But because they usually are making a trek, they try to see more than. And I always push more.
Yeah.
So if you're coming up for one spot, because you're already up here, let's go for lunch. Let's see a few other places. Let's make a whole day out of it. And really get to know each other and get to know what your needs and your emotional needs are and why.
Because that's got to be like a 4-hour, like either coming up, you're showing them 5 cottages. They're not right beside each other. Like that's a full, you got to book off your whole afternoon, right?
Yeah. It's usually from the morning to the afternoon.
Is it like other kind of luxury markets where you end up double ending more often than like, for instance, we would?
No.
In the city? No? Okay.
No. Generally, if I'm selling, they're leaving Muskoka altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And the buyer's coming from somewhere else, generally.
Okay.
Right.
I know there are markets on the extreme high end where it is one agent involved, which is now illegal here in BC as well. You can't do that. But I was just wondering if that was the same in yours, because when we have things now where there's small towns and there might only be 3 agents in the town, but now there has to be a buyer and you can't double end a darn thing. So,
yeah, they have stopped where you cut your commission on a more than one bidder. So if it's a multiple bid, you can't cut your commission,
right?
Which I think is somewhat fair, I guess. But there definitely are the top realtors that do the luxury market up here. They're very well known. So it's kind of the same type of people that are swimming in the same luxury pool.
And is it exclusive? Is a lot of stuff off market up there? Because I would assume if you're no, it's not.
Not really. I mean, we have a few, but it's just because they're exclusive and they're going to list eventually.
I see.
We don't have a lot of pocket listings, but it's funny because everyone wants to see pocket listing.
It's funny how the human brain works, eh? You just want what you can't have or what no one else knows exists, right? Even if it's not a good deal, you're like, well, I'm the only one that knows about it.
Yeah. And I have listers that are like that too. And it's like, well, it's harder to sell a pocket listing here too, because I'm marketing to such a broad state.
Yeah.
Like to have a pocket listing, it's even harder, right? So just put it on MLS.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just put it on MLS. Okay, final question for you before we wrap this up. This has been an awesome hour. Your social media following is crazy. I think Instagram, you're like nearing 100,000. Can you teach me and Steve how to do that? Because I've been posting every day for like 10 years and I'm at like 10,000. So, and Steve's at like 3 followers on Instagram. So how did you build that up so fast?
So there's a few things that I did. I mean, everyone's going to tell you the trend, and keeping up with the trend is just going to blow your mind. One thing I will tell you is that you don't actually have to post every day. Great. I think you need to post with intention more than just throwing spaghetti at the wall. I think you should, like you said, get obsessed with it. Get obsessed with it and do it for fun, because people will start to enjoy your content because you're enjoying it, right?
Yeah.
Add value. I either value, comedy, or inspiration are 3 big reasons to post. If it doesn't do that, don't post.
I like that. That's great. Okay, last question, I promise. When is the agency launching their Netflix show for Muskoka? What is that happening? Is there I don't know anything. I'm just making up rumors. Okay. All right. Cool.
No comment.
All right. This is where we break rumors on the Tom Storey Show. Holly, thank you so much for joining us. This has been so much fun. For people listening or watching that want to connect with you, what is the best place for them to go?
Instagram at Holly Ann Carroll. And I would love to give everyone a free copy of the book that listens. So just DM me and I'll send you the link.
We will put the link down below in the description if you're okay with that. And tell you what I'm going to do, Tom, because this book has changed my life. Below Holly's, not above it, will be an Amazon link, so you guys can know the book I was talking about too. Because turns out reading makes you smarter, and I should start doing it more.
And if you're like me and you have ADD, I maybe mentioned this on the podcast before, but you can buy the physical book and buy the audiobook, and then you can put the audiobook on 1.5 speed while you're looking at the physical book. And because your brain can't read as fast as it can be read to you. Sounds weird, but it's really helped me like get through books. So
I'm telling you, 4-page chapters, Tom. That's the way to go.
Keep it simple for Steve. I like it. Thank you everyone for watching this week. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for listening. If you're on the audio platforms, have an amazing day, and we will see you next Sunday. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Holly. That was awesome.
All right.